There's not much time. You got to be miles away from here before dawn. Where is she? Follow that North Star. If there are no stars, just follow the river. Listen for them. Fear is your enemy. Whoa, easy now.
I'm gonna be free or die.
I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but you have made it 100 miles to freedom all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Harriet Tubman. You are welcome here anytime. If I'm free, my family should be too. I made up my mind, I'm going back. You're confident, composed. When trouble comes, you'll be ready.
Papers. Says here you're 5.5 feet tall. You ain't more than 5 feet.
Must have won my high boots that day.
Why you back here? It ain't safe.
I come to get you. Bring all of you to freedom.
Do you know what would happen if you got caught? You got lucky, Harriet.
I made it this far on my own, so don't you tell me what I can't do.
Harriet, welcome to the Underground Railroad. Everybody, everywhere is looking for you.
God don't mean people to own people.
Find this thief and burn her at the stake.
Harriet!
I would give every last drop of blood in my veins until this monster called slavery is dead. Ready?
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. That, as you see, is Harriet Tubman, born 1820, and she's our hero. Little tiny lady, 5 foot tall. And she was courageous enough to save almost 1,000 different slaves. In the beginning, it was just a few. But in the end, after the Civil War, she freed maybe 750 one time. All right? Welcome to the show. Today we have Sister Kenya, and we're going to talk about Harriet Tubman. Welcome to the show, Sister.
Thank you. It's always great to be back. I know we haven't seen each other since May, but this is a real serious, auspicious occasion and an important one because we're going to discuss one of the greatest ancestors whom ever existed amongst us, who, if we think about it, was called Moses.
Right.
And when we think of the word Moses, we all go back to Egypt and we go to, and Charleston Heston parts the Red Sea. But she parted something much deeper.
Mm-hmm.
She parted and ended with a deliberate understanding of a higher power that she could do the impossible if she believed. And she had to really go in. But the difficulty with the movie is that it is a movie and people are having conversations as though it was a documentary.
Right.
All movies are very comfortable with taking liberties. And the most important thing that you get out of it is, oh my, a 5 foot woman with no reading or writing could save herself and then not be so self-centered and comfortable. Save 71st, her family and anybody that wanted to come along. And I think that's the essential thing. What I'm hearing on the internet and what my young students are saying at the colleges, at any college that I am, and I've, have been around traveling to colleges with my material, was that, Harriet, you just shouldn't see it. It brings a very bad reflection on the black man. It's propaganda. Revo said that she could understand the role because she didn't what? And what she says is, well, I did not you know, I'm not an African American. I didn't feel the way
Yeah,
African American. And she's right, because anyone who was an African American playing that role would have had to take a lot of pauses, exhale. I cried in the theater, and I was with a male partner who was kind of saying, "Are you okay?" I said, "To see this is very hard."
Well, you know, anytime you put Hollywood involved with anything serious, like
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman, you get a phase or just a slight flavor of the truth. I mean, you saw the movie, Jonah,
Yes.
all right?
So-
And you're 18, so what sort of a historical reference that you see in there? You know the story, the true story of, we're going to show the actual footage of Harriet herself. And we're just showing how Hollywood presents it, and the drama and all the different things that happen with, you know, actors and actresses. But we're talking about the seriousness of what Harriet did, all right? Now, you as an 18-year-old, you saw the movie, and can you compare it to the historical Harriet?
Yes, so for me, growing up, being...
By the way, you're from NAN. Let's announce
yeah,
who
I'm
you are.
from NAN, National Action Network, on 145th. And for me, growing up, being first generation, I know a lot of times at school when they teach us about Harriet Tubman, they just push the issue that Harriet Tubman helped free slaves and that she made an indelible impact in the African diaspora. So when I went to see the movie, I wasn't very informed about Harriet Tubman. I knew who she was and what she did, but I didn't know the great lengths that she took. So I went to see it with my mom. I went to the Schomburg to see it when it premiered. She called me.
But did you believe half the stuff that happened in there?
No, I believed it when I saw it, but I wasn't really informed about any of this stuff.
When you say first
All right,
generation,
let me do this. See, we have my granddaughter and my daughter here
Yay.
today. My baby just turned. We went to a birthday party last Friday, and she just turned 50, so she's in town for the weekend. And just so happens she's in town, and
Right
I
on.
have my family here today, and
Yes.
we're celebrating the women. Oh, these are all my girls here. Surrounded by all the girls here today. And I want to show the historical part. See, you two guys didn't see the movie, right? But I want to show you, that's the dramatic part. But we're going to get serious and show you what this woman was really like. You know, my mother was 4'11", and this woman was 5 foot tall. My mother was 4'11", all right?
so dynamite's dynamite, no
and
matter
my,
what.
My granddaughter here is 4'7", so she was a little
4'8".
taller. 4'8". So a
So
little
she's like,
taller than you,
just
right?
right, so she's
All right.
about the size.
So I want you to play roll-in number 1, and we're going to see the actual history of Harriet instead of the drama. And this is, you get the real spirit of it. Then you go see the movie. The movie is well done, but I want you to know the real story. All right? Now I'll play the historic story.
Harriet Tubman began her life in the bonds of slavery, but lived her life helping others achieve their freedom.
She really helped Black people have a sense of self, a sense of freedom, and a sense that, you know, slavery was not right.
Araminta Harriet was born into slavery around 1820 in Dorchester County, Maryland. As a child, she was loaned out to different plantations. By the time she turned 12, she was working in the fields. When she was a young teen, she suffered a severe injury which would affect her for the rest of her life.
A slave owner threw a metal weight at another slave and accidentally hit her in the head. For the rest of her life, she suffered epilepsy, terrible headaches, but she also had these strange visions, which she ascribed to God communicating to her. And she took these visions as a symbol of her mission, like Moses, to go and free her people.
In 1844, she married John Tubman, who was a free black man, a fairly common occurrence in Maryland. Harriet was determined to escape her life of slavery, and in 1849, she finally did it. She risked her life by making her way from Maryland to Philadelphia. She followed the North Star and used the so-called Underground Railroad to make it to freedom. Underground Railroad was an organized group of free blacks, whites, and Christian abolitionists who helped slaves escape to the North. Harriet had made it to the Promised Land. No one would have blamed her if she never returned to the South, but she desperately wanted to free her family. She made perilous trips back to free her 2 brothers, her sister, and her sister's 2 children. When she made a 3rd trip to get her husband, she found he had taken another wife. Instead of returning with her husband, she saved more slaves.
Not only did she escape slavery and achieve freedom for herself, but she went back down into the South to bring freedom to dozens of other slaves.
Harriet was clever as she was brave, figuring out countless tricks to bring many slaves to freedom over the next several years.
The fact that she developed these paths and trails that took people through the country, and they traveled at night, and they used quilts to have secret codes and know the paths, and then to bring people north across the Mason-Dixon line into Ohio to find freedom. So she was a pioneer, and I think a very, very strong woman.
Her legendary status as an Underground Railroad conductor earned her the nickname Moses.
Well, I think Harriet Tubman's...
Thank you, that was sweet.
You know what's so fascinating about this? This woman was born in 1820, and she died in 1913 after doing all this. There's another portion of this where she was a spy during the Civil War.
Absolutely.
All right? And this little lady did, I mean, she was a real hero. But you see the movie, and the movie just...
It's just too quick. It was in and out. Let's just do, because she's coming up on the $20 bill next year.
That's right.
And this is all that it was. It wasn't a propaganda. It was simply Harriet Tubman's coming up on the $20. People need to know why. There's a statue in Harlem. It's facing, you know, people. And the wonderful thing about people that wanted to do this with the legitimacy of Harriet Tubman may be quintessentially the greatest national shrine of any of the women of any movement, and that includes Sojourner, with all the love I have for her. Because what she did is something that you think of, well, you know, man would automatically risk his life to save his family. But here's a woman who's saying, I'm not only going to save my family, I'm going to risk everything. And here's why. This is where everybody's sliding a slippery slope. She wasn't listening to folks. She wasn't interested in opinions. She didn't have a concern about whether you think I can do it, you don't think I can do it. She was having a spell, which they now would say is a seizure, that had her communicating with her divine self. She was falling out for an hour.
Did you know this? Did you know that before you saw the film?
I have known about Harriet Tubman since I was 11.
Okay.
And because I'm an educator in African studies, it was necessary to know about our story. But it's important.
Let's hear from the youth. How's Jasmine? You have anything to say? What has impressed you the most?
Well, the fact that she freed slaves and did all this stuff for us is very heartwarming.
Right?
Nice.
Somebody just a little taller than you. You imagine that?
Kind of.
Now, your grandmother was your great-grandmother.
That's right, great-grandmother.
Great-grandma.
She was
5'3".
4'11".
Oh, his mother.
Oh.
I've got a picture for you. All right. You imagine a little lady like that running around there, shooting guns and running through the bushes. When she first escaped, she walked 100 miles and found her way. She couldn't read or write. All right. So she had this. She followed the North Star, and God guided her through all this. And it came from a womb when she was a kid. The master threw a mental rod.
When she was 13 years old. Yeah.
At her and hit her dead in the head, and she got
An
epileptic
overseer.
fits, and then she would talk to God. You know,
I think the things that the movie and their honesty.
Can we hear from Michelle?
Yeah, but before that, I just wanted to say something about that because you said it was she was exactly 13, and she was in a store.
13.
She was 13. She was in a store. She was defending a boy whom overseer was chastising so harshly. Now, 13 years old, you have to understand this. This is why seeing the movie, if you never understood about Harriet, see the movie. Get a synopsis. If you can, there's things been about Harriet on the web and other places since she's been in a movie since 1968. So there's no excuse for folks waiting for this. But if you haven't, if you've never seen anything on her, there's so much footage on Harriet Tubman because she was indelibly incredible, and because we're a spiritual people, even other people, European descendants, will say, I don't know what you folks do spiritually, but you have some magic. That was the coin of phrase, black people got soul and they got something with God. It was because of Harriet's incredible ability to hear only that voice and to find her way before she got inside of the network called the Underground Railroad. Sincerely, and this is what was important, she got in the network, and she got in that after doing what she said. God gives me this, he made me have it because I have to get my messages when I'm resting. She would fall out for an hour. Now, how do you fall out for an hour in the woods running away from dogs and horses?
But the whole point is that this is not just inherited in Harriet. It's inherited in all human beings, no matter what you take the Martin Luther King ethic and you judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. So we have to embody that in our spirit if we're the spiritual people of the planet. We have to allow everyone to show the God that lies within.
Now, what you're saying is significant because the abolitionists were a part of support, right? We're not saying that Harriet ran away from white supremacy and white slave masters and didn't get assisted, but it is essential to know that her ultimate reality in finding her path was a spiritual thing. All the folks are born with a soul. It's how your humanness becomes. But the bitterness of a slave master, as I would say, as an exploiter, because I don't even use the word slave. Slave is a condition of the mind. But if you're not a slave, it's because you don't understand conditioning your mind. He who controls the images controls our freedom. But this woman said,
I don't agree with that.
You know, and if somebody's controlling your images, this is why folks are complaining about Avivo, you know, she's not black enough, what do you mean? The bottom line is we're seeing a story,
Who's not black enough?
We're seeing a story of a woman. I'm just giving you some of the controversial.
Well, they said Obama wasn't black enough.
Right, and yet we have Medicaid for all. Yeah. And he's married to the most incredible woman. So the bottom of the line is our people have got to get a comfortable reality about our heroes, our sheroes, and the ability that we have spiritually to do the impossible. What Harriet is if you've ever heard the song To Dream the Impossible Dream, she's the absolute virtuous impossible dream on stilts.
Well, I brought this program to us because I feel that we all have to take advantage of Harriet's braveness and her spirituality. This is what I saw in the movie. I was amazed how she stopped and followed God. If you have God in your life, you're dead inside. This is what I've always preached here. And so, Michelle, tell us what it's like turning 50. Life begins
that's kind of off the subject a little bit.
Well, you have
No, let me go back and hear on the tails of what you're saying, because the perfect person is the proper blend of spirituality, religiosity, physiology, and psychology. It is a blend of the three, because you can't just be spiritual, you can't just be physical, you can't be one part. It's the mind, body, and spirit for a reason. And I think we can sometimes often get caught up in the whole spiritual thing. She just was led by God. She did empty herself to allow God to lead her, but there still was a strong mind and a body to go along with that to make her successful.
That's when the spirituality comes out of you, when you have all three. Is that what you're saying?
It's a perfect blend. Ideally, it's a perfect blend of religion, spirituality, and psychology.
So your experience in life
Absolutely.
sort of guides you towards the right path.
I think, but let's face it, there's Malcolm, there are people born to do certain things, and I think that she finally found her purpose. Right, so she found her purpose, and that's what happens. Of course, you're going to use your natural body, the element of your flesh and bone, to react. But Harriet was a
that's
unique.
what she's just being real.
Yeah,
about.
well, this is the thing. It's not esoteric. I mean, folks that go into esoteric are usually folks that decide to go live up in the Himalayas and do kumbaya. But we are living in a very serious time, and I think the movie reflects a very serious time with what's going on in D.C. and what's going on in the country.
Donald Trump.
And no, the country is divided. And Harry is saying, yeah, the movie and even the person is saying the country at this time is divided. But the fact that we are a God's people, we shall overcome and we shall succeed if we believe and work together. I think the movie showed a lot of individuals at various places. The movie brought forward, for those who saw it and never knew about her now, are saying, this is an incredible woman. I just want to do a background. Harriet was 5 years old. 5 years old, and she was asked to be a cleaning woman in a home of a slave master. At 5 years old, your granddaughter is 9. At 5 years old, she didn't even know how to sweep or mop or use a broom. And the story, her biography says that she was beaten every single day. Every single day until, because the dust would settle, she would open the window thinking that's a 5-year-old. That was a good idea to get all the dust out, but of course the dust would come back in from the wind. So one of the slave masters, this is in the autobiography by Sarah Pickford. I think that people just got to read the right stuff. Sarah Pickford actually does the autobiography. So what is important about Harriet is written in an autobiography, so nobody has to get a mysterious idea. But it's important to take a look at the woman's commitment to her higher power. She wasn't clear about her mission. She was only clear about this: if I make it to the other side, then I'm going to believe that these things that are happening to me, this thing that happens to me when I fall out, is real. And she gets to Philadelphia, and the first thing she says is, my goodness, I'm actually physically free. And you see her in the movie saying, but there's been writings that say she checked her hands because is this what free hands feel like? Is this a free body? And she was going through this whole thing with her person. Is this real? But now most people would have said, woo, I'm free, I'm never going back. It's the end of that. So Frederick Douglass is living, he didn't go back, but he became an abolitionist and he worked with John Brown to do his thing. Everybody had a piece of the puzzle, but she had the most dangerous piece of the puzzle. She had the most incredible mission. She had to, the second time she went back, she was dressed as a male.
Yeah.
And as a male, she said maybe they wouldn't be looking for a man the way they're looking for a woman. In fact, Moses, in the white master's so-called idea, was definitely a man. No woman could possibly do this. No woman could possibly arrange this mentally. And yet we know that women do so many things.
Well, you're the human gods, as far as I'm concerned. You create life.
Okay.
I mean, I'm on your side,
But,
my mommy was God,
but it's so good to hear you say that, because it is the males on the internet.
Well, who produces life?
Oh, let's face it.
All
If
right.
you didn't come through a woman, I'm concerned about that. Now, that is a little esoteric for me to handle.
Right.
Okay, and even for the 9-year-old to say, right?
Well,
If
let's
you
hear
didn't come
from,
to your mama,
let's-
what you came through.
Well, I mean,
It happens. People, she was, your daughter was saying something about not being, there are people who, talk a lot, the aliens and the Dogons and all of that, and the starship, and last night I saw the ship in my window. All of that's fine. Harriet's followed a star that we still call today the North Star, just because it's the brightest in this, there was no street lights. But following the North Star all the way to Canada. After Philadelphia, she goes further to Canada.
The purpose of the movie is to empower everybody.
I think everyone should be.
Everybody should be empowered by this movie. That there's no limit to what you can do, especially even if you're a female. who has the hardest time on this planet. We can tell under Donald Trump who's the hardest on, female.
And why are men the hardest on females is the question.
Oh, I don't know.
Because they don't want to admit that the women are stronger.
They're fools. I mean, they're fighting their own human God. Like I say, to me, my mommy was God.
So some of the difficulty...
Because I came from her. But she produced me.
But you're also a very wonderful father, a nurturing husband. The males that were...
That's love energy, that's my DNA.
This morning, I had a couple things to do, and I went someplace...
And I passed it on to this human over here.
You did. I went somewhere, and just because of the controversy...
Will you get my family to say a little something?
Well, sure, but can I just bring up a point to help them?
Okay.
The male energy is now concerned that the movie reflected them in a light that showed them as too brutal, and that it was because of the propaganda that white America wanted to put out. So this has been written about. It's not going to probably come up in Essence, but it has been written about, that the controversy is that the male was depicted as the brute, not the white slave master, but the black male. The black male's a slave catcher. He kills the woman in the house. If you haven't seen the movie, you have to see it because you have to find out about this murder. He brutally murders a woman who was saved.
Why wouldn't that be true?
But the controversy...
Aren't men the brutes of the planet?
I don't believe that men are the brutes of the planet. I think that many men are brutal, but I don't think that men in general, that's a very big broad brush.
No, men are really brutes,
generally. I don't believe that. And I would hope, I would hope if you're out there and you believe that men are brutal and that is your concept, let me say this to you. The most loving and most wonderful man in my life was my father. He is the reason that I'm a graduate of Princeton. He is the reason that I existed. I have 5 brothers.
That's one man.
Yeah.
Oh, but you have 5 brothers. Right.
And I had brothers, and they're wonderful fathers and tremendous husbands. I think that men are not a brute, and I think that we need to not even separate the family like that. It takes a man and a woman to produce this offspring, and it will continue that. So let's not get caught up in anybody's assumption of what men are and what women are. People are going to manifest their virtues, their vices as they grow. Hopefully they're growing to be better. But this and nothing else should allow people to stigmatize the black male energy and stigmatize the female as saying, I mean, I was in the movie theater when women were going, that's just like a black man, beat a woman to the death. And there's a part of the movie where, a black man is shot by a white man who was going to shoot Harriet. He's the savior. He says, don't shoot Harriet, I want her alive.
Now that's a movie.
And in real life,
look at Donald Trump.
Let's
update ourselves. Look at the reality of that, what we got to live with.
The divided country that has been left for us. We're going back to 1872.
All right. So let's pay the second part of this, and we'll get back, and perhaps we can get some history. Play the second one.
In 1850, things became more dangerous for Harriet when the Fugitive Slave Act was passed. Instead of being a free woman, she was now a fugitive. She continued to free slaves, but now guiding them to Canada so they could truly be free. From 1851 to 1857, Harriet lived mostly north of the border in St. Catharines, Canada. She continued to make trips to Maryland twice a year to save more slaves. Besides her work as a liberator of slaves, Harriet spoke in support of anti-slavery and women's rights. Her efforts made her a wanted woman with a bounty on her head, but she was never turned in. She aided abolitionist John Brown with his plans for the raid on Harper's Ferry. During the Civil War, the government asked her to help the Union cause by organizing a network of spies among black men in the South.
Not only was she known as the Great Liberator, but she also assisted the Union Army, going down on patrols and advising Union officers on how best to attack the South.
Out in the trenches, she also helped Colonel James Montgomery disrupt Southern supply lines, which resulted in the freedom of hundreds of slaves. After the war, Harriet dedicated herself to establishing schools for freed men in South Carolina. Even though she couldn't read or write, she understood the value of education. In her later years, Tubman worked with her friend Susan B. Anthony to support the cause of women's suffrage.
Harriet Tubman is relevant today, not only for her work in terms of racial justice, but also in terms of women's rights. After the Civil War, she became an outspoken supporter for the suffrage movement to get women the right to vote.
To help make ends meet and continue to help the causes she believed in, she worked on a book called Scenes in the Life of Harriet Tubman. In 1908, she established a home for older poor African Americans in Auburn, New York, which she moved into in 1911. She lived there till her death in 1913 from pneumonia. She was buried with full military honors.
But I remember.
Harriet Tubman, has a lot of significance for Black people, particularly in the age of Obama, because she kind of started the liberation of Black people, in the days of slavery, and really set the path of civil rights in the United States.
Harriet Tubman's bravery and determination allowed her to accomplish incredible things throughout her amazing life.
From Galilee.
She is someone that you cannot forget. She is someone that really kind of changed our perception of what equality and freedom and liberation and civil rights mean.
The hour I first believed.
This is a solemn note, but, I was quite touched by this, and having researched and realized what she really did. I mean, the most powerful part was that she was guided by God, and I just felt that we should bring the attention to everybody that we're all guided by God, and we have to take it.
Which God, though? What's Trump guided by? Is that God?
We're learning. I think Trump is a test. It's a test of our spirituality, because you can see the fool that's in the White House, and knowing what people struggle with during slavery. And to see this master in the White House, and he's only for him. He's not for anybody but himself. But see, this whole racism has drawn us apart and against each other. We're not judging each other by the content of our character. Not following our real hero, Martin Luther King. He led the way. And he led, all people are righteous. They all have a spirituality. It's the human condition of brutality. But to see a little humble woman like 5 foot tall, and I see my mommy in that. That's what I see. And nothing but a strong belief in God. She left it in me, and I pass it on to my kids. And it comes, that's part of our DNA. My mother's in all of us. All right? So I think that my own family might not know, didn't see the movie, but they can they can look and see the history right here.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
All right? So it's important for us to not only look at the movie, but look at the truth, which is reality. So you watch the movie and then you go back and you Google what Harriet Tubman really did. Mm-hmm. Because movies can But it was close to the truth, but you had a lot of drama and everything else. That's why I chose to show the little bio there. What do you think, Michelle?
She was a great woman. A lot
What do
of
you
heart.
think about your daddy's show today?
Very good.
It's not over, is it?
No, we got a long way to go. Jasmine?
We learned about her in school, and
Oh, great. Okay.
we, our teacher last year, 2 years ago, she had the books. She had the collection of books of who was and what is, and usually she would every day tell us a chapter about one character, so we would have a book every month.
Mm-hmm.
And she would read the book. She would read who was to us, and independent reading, we would read the Who Was books too.
All right. So you know this story?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, good. So then when you go to see the movie, you can tell the difference between what
Yeah.
you've read and your history. So I suggest everybody see the movie. What about you, Michelle?
Oh, we're going to go see it right away.
Okay.
Oh, right on.
All
So
right.
that's the bottom line, is that if people should, so
Everybody
there should
must
be
see
no
it.
propaganda
But
going
don't
out saying
forget
don't
that you
see
have
it.
to study what's behind it all, the true meaning, which is special, especially for you ladies.
And can I just say something?
Sure, go ahead.
I think that more, I don't know how many people saw this, but I think more the youth should get educated and more in tune with movies like this, and they should definitely show it in school, because I like to say that the youth is the new generation. So we're the ones who's grown up in the Trump era.
Right,
So a lot of the-
exactly. Ooh, wow.
That's right.
So a lot of the times, like, you know, now growing up, I'm not seeing too much of the culture in the youth. I'm not seeing a lot of the culture. So for me, when I went to see the movie, I almost didn't believe this happened. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Now, growing up, a lot of times African Americans, they don't stick together. And to know that, did they use the N-word in the movie? Did they use the N-word in the movie?
They weren't, they never.
They never used the
No,
N-word.
they used it, you mean to the slave masters?
Mhm.
They're gonna catch, they're gonna
So-
catch the N-word a lot. Yeah, they do a lot.
Now you know that's a regular common word that's used all over. And to see that Harriet Tubman did so much for us to pave the way, and now people just
sliding back.
You like to see that same unity nowadays in
Yeah,
black youth?
definitely.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, definitely.
You don't see any cohesiveness? You don't see love for each other?
Not as much as I saw in that movie. Not as much. I
think
don't see
So
that
that's
these days.
interesting. That's interesting. You're 18. So you and people your age, you don't see any togetherness amongst black youth?
Now today, if this was happening now, I don't think anybody in the youth would have went back to go and save their family.
That's very interesting. What a synopsis.
That's
Oh
a
my
different
God.
generation. I'm from a different generation. Though.
Oh,
You
yes.
mentioned you were
That's a
first
lot.
generation. Where are your parents from?
My mom is from Trinidad and my dad is from Antigua.
Okay.
Okay.
Caribbean.
First generation immigration.
So not my grandmother, but
But
my
you were
great
born in
grandmother.
this
Yeah, I
country?
was born here, but my great grandmother was a
So
slave.
you grew up American?
Yeah, I'm
All
here
right.
from Harlem. For that reason.
Absolute Harlem Rough.
How often did you go back?
I never been back.
You never been there?
Did
So
you
you're an
have
American?
ancestral
Oh,
I'm
all right.
American.
But you know.
But still, the parents
Your
coming from another
parents.
country have a different mentality than the.
Because
than
they
the
take
Black
advantage of
American.
the...
Well, they were raised in countries where they didn't have. Not that slavery was not part of all throughout the Caribbean, but there is a greater sense of pride outside of America with with black people. People come from other countries; they have a greater sense of pride in other countries than they do in this
Well, that's
country.
because they don't know stories about Harriet Tubman. I didn't grow up, I grew up with a high self-esteem.
But can I say something about Trinidad? Because being that she's from Trinidad, Trinidad had the first national conference, the three Trinidadians, James Padmore, C.L.L. James, Louis Padmore, they actually put together the first conference in Paris against racial discrimination. So there are lots of wonderful Caribbeans. The Jamaican explosion had a Maroon society that fought against, iniquity and and slavery. So all through the Caribbean there were rebellions, and we rebelled here as well in various ways, but Harriet is the greatest memory of rebellion. Rebellion against injustice is important. King talked about it, everybody talked about it. So here's this beautiful young lady saying, my parents have brought me here and I'm first generation, and I don't think anybody in my community or now would go back and save someone from a burning building
Now,
or
what does
anything.
what does
That says
do
a lot.
first?
That says a
What does
lot.
that do first, though?
It's, you know, it's because
So we need to expose everybody to the people like Harriet Tubman,
Absolutely.
especially females,
Absolutely.
right? Because here we have an 18-year-old who doesn't feel, and this is what the problem is now. This is why we don't, that's why we're, see, I said to an African, I said, well, you come here, and I said, you should be over in the Congo, you know, gathering the wealth of the world is in the Congo, and you're fighting amongst each other.
national, right, right,
You know,
national
you-
pride. Have no,
You know,
it's
look at the
going.
wealth of the
It's going.
Congo.
The wealth
And
of
you
South
have
Africa.
black on black crime there. I did 16 years of shows about the Congo.
Indeed.
And I met a woman cab driver who told me that Congo finally got a black, a new president.
Yes.
All right? And we're going to do more shows on that, in the Congo. We're going to get Gimme here.
But that, you
We
know,
did for years.
I don't know if anybody saw Django. I'm not I'm not promoting that.
I
Did
know.
you see it? I'm not promoting that,
That was
but
obnoxious.
but here's what we see in that. What we see in that is black with a black male who
Is that
has
anything
been
close to the truth?
brainwashed and who has.
Do you think that was anything
I
close
think
to
that
the
there were
truth?
plenty of overseers who were black, who were very comfortable living in the big house.
She's
and-
saying we have the same thing today. The problem today amongst black people is we don't get along with each other.
Yeah. But
I say that on this program all the time.
But it's cognitive dissonance. It's because of post-traumatic stress of the.
You can come up with any
No, it is.
excuse.
We're not getting
Like
along
they
with each
say,
other.
don't bring the guns to the community, but they don't force you to pull the trigger. You know?
But what?
Look, if you look at the planned genocide that's gone throughout our history, the planned genocide of the 80s, crack. What did it do to our nation? What did it do to us as a people? What were we doing? Who was selling us the crack? We were making money off killing each other.
But that's who the neighborhood you're in. Nobody
Exactly.
looks at any other crime in any other neighborhood and says you're doing it to your own people. Nobody leaves their own neighborhood. They do, and they function within their neighborhood.
Okay.
You can't say that any other ethnic group doesn't kill each other. You don't give it a title. You don't say Italian on Italian crime.
Which is
How
the
many
mafia.
Italian crime
But it
mafias
was.
are killing? You're from that family. I'm from this family. You live on that side of the street. I live on this side of the street. It really doesn't have as much to do with race as it does with, hey, this is mine. This is yours. It's the same kind of fighting.
You don't
Well, how
see
about
the-
we're all humans? We're
Okay.
all so
Well, I
we're all
see
killing
that all
each
the
other.
time.
What's the difference whether you're in Syria or you're in Ukraine or you're in? Look what's
Okay.
going on in Israel. I mean, with the Palestinians and you're saying that why is one so different than the other?
Well, I say about drugs is that it's a plan. See, drugs were planted in the community because the community was distressed. There's no other way to make money except to kill your brother hustling drugs.
Well, what's the biggest killer of people? Alcohol is number one. Way big, killed way more people than any crack epidemic.
But see, with crack, you were making huge amount of money. Liquor was you were internalizing, you drank a lot. I mean,
but if
that
you think
was
about
a side-
prohibition, if you go back to that whole thing, moonshine, they were making money on moonshine back then. It's just, now it's opioids. It's always something new.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not
who's
exclusive
the
to
drug
anybody's
dealer with
community.
opioid? Well, who's the drug
The
dealer with
pharmaceutical
opioid?
companies.
That's it. So that's the new drug dealer on the block. So we all have a planned genocide. I think it's just a hustling, a way to make money.
But it's not indicative of being born out of your mother's womb. I'm going to grow up and become a hustler.
No.
Right. Again,
You're a
things
product
happen.
of your environment.
It's exactly that. And
Okay.
your again, someone allowing you not to have an image. The first image of black people on television, in fact, which is where people get their images from. If you don't understand that and you don't understand that background, then you don't understand the black exploitation films. I mean, if the 70s, if you are
I grew
seeing,
up in those eras.
if you're seeing yourself as a drug dealer and you're being glorified, why wouldn't you want to aspire to that? Now kids want to be basketball players. But let's face it, if you start with black exploitation and understand that that was an image opportunity, get that out there, feed them that, we're going to feed. And so the mind then grows up, and there's very few people that survive that kind of imagery.
You had to be around in those days. We goofed on Superfly. That was a joke.
You goofed on Superfly?
Of course.
Okay.
But they still wanted it.
They
No, I
wanted more
never
of
wanted to
it,
be
and
a
they wanted
hustler.
more women. You know, women were exploited by.
You wanted some piece of it.
You know, women were exploited a lot in the 70s.
Yeah, but I was corporate in those days, so I was completely different.
Oh, so you you were different, but that was the image. You did not control the television. You did not have a network. You did not decide, okay, in every theater
But
we
you
want.
didn't have to go that way. You could go, it was a different route to go.
There's
Things
always a
available-
different
But
route
who
to
leads
go.
you to that
exactly.
route? You were led by your 4'11" mother and father, right? But that 4'11" woman was guiding you, just as your granddaughter's here with her mother today, being guided into the
Right.
proper places to go. In black exploitation is, if you consider a lot of families not having structure, not having mother, father, and structure, the structures
What do you
that
think the
we
problem
have.
is? What do you think the problem is?
That's
You-
with what?
You're the one
With
stated
regarding
the
what?
problem, that you don't think that blacks have the unity that they have.
I
that
think
had
within the
back then.
community, they're very isolated. And, well, I do want to agree with you. I don't feel that even though drug is being projected within the community, it's your own choice to say
Right.
what you want to do.
That's right.
Me being from Harlem and that being projected within the community, it's your decision. That's not a route that I would like to take. But many others do get lost in that route. So it's all up to you and who you have in your corner and who's pushing you.
That's exactly right.
But
And
you're
the-
going to school outside of the community,
Yeah.
okay? And tell me about the scholarship you got.
Yes, yes.
So I applied.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's fabulous.
I applied to New England College, and they offered me $112,000 to
Say that
attend this-
again, how much?
112 to attend this
112
school.
what?
$1,000
$1,000.
Free ride.
$112,000 for doing what?
for a merit scholarship based on.
What did you do to get that kind of money, girl?
But that's another thing. That school is a PWI. For those who don't know, it's a predominantly white institution.
Okay.
I didn't know it had a title, PWI.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. So I'm waiting to see what the HBCUs offer me. But like we were just talking about it before, they don't offer a lot of money. And this is what I'm talking about with supporting your own community. They don't offer a lot of money to the
They
kids.
don't have a lot of money.
But why not? How come the PWI has money?
Because they know that you graduate and you give giving back to your alma mater, and that's how you keep things going. And that doesn't always happen outside of that group of people. Because you can't expect 5 or 10% of the people to keep all these schools going. So.
What's your solution? What do you see? A way to cure it? You're right in the middle of it.
I definitely think we need to be more educated.
Okay.
That's one. Two, I think there's a disconnect between all of our generations. Us seeing this movie, we all have a different perspective, from me to her to you to us. Everybody has a different perspective because we're all growing up in a different generation.
Right, okay.
Me and her are like in the post-Trump era. So we will be the ones who are most affected, if not me, but her the most, growing up.
And social media, you can't take them.
Social media.
Yeah,
that's
just a huge
the
piece of this generation.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because when this Harriet Tubman, I don't want to call it a situation, but when this Harriet Tubman was going on, there's no social media. I don't think now with social media playing a big part, something like this can happen. Too many kids like to record, throw their phones up. It's all over the internet, a police brutality. This cannot happen in this day and age.
But look what's happening with all the social media. We have Donald Trump, you know? And he's doing nothing but lying every day. But then again, I'll say again that I think this is just a lesson for all of us. All righteous people need to rise up and change things.
How do we change things?
Vote.
That's right.
Stay right with God and stay right with your family unit and make sure that you promote prosperity and self-pride.
The quickest way to heal is to look at someone else and be human enough to care about their condition.
Amen.
It's the God in me, right? You always say
The God in me loves the God in you.
But if there is a God in you, then it will automatically trigger, right? There's a
all
God
humans,
in all of
all
us,
humans,
but not all
it
of,
comes with the kit.
Yeah, you know, everyone is born of the source, but not everyone is manifested, because a man is judged by his deeds. A woman is judged by their deeds. I can say, yes, I have a God in me, but I'm not manifesting anything godly.
That's
I'm
it.
selfish, I'm self-centered, I'm narcissistic, whatever the case is. We see this in the White House. The issue becomes, what do you really do to prove your humanity? And we're talking about Harriet proving not only that she was human, and some people said superhuman. I heard this guy say, oh, she was a superhero. I saw the movie with 100 students from the Harlem Children's Zone who happened to take over the theater the second time I saw it, and I'll go again. But the second time I saw it, they were saying, these wonderful 8th graders, 7th graders and 8th graders coming out of the theater saying, man, she should have been a Marvel comic hero or something, or they should get her on Marvel Comics, and if not Marvel, what's the other one that you all get, you know, it's Marvel, and what's the competitor? I don't know, it's the other guy, the other Star Wars-like comic books. And I thought to myself, wow, they're actually sitting here thinking that she had superpowers.
Yeah.
That she had some superpower that, like, well, she knew where to duck under the tree, and she knew. So she was
following her calling. That's what I got out of the movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, she was just called to do this by God.
I agree.
And that people, you have to realize that God is real. If we stick to that premise that God is real, you can't go wrong.
It's very real.
You can't go wrong.
At least I know this.
And He answers prayers. He does. My baby's here.
And I said you should bring your daughter, and I don't even know. I didn't even know.
I don't know
that
where
she
that
was,
came from.
Yeah, it's in your phone.
It's
It
in
was
my
in your
phone.
But whatever the case.
She said it, and you popped. You know, I told you I prayed.
Well, maybe Harriet was invoking me to say, I know that he's got a daughter. Bring her.
No, maybe it was God.
Well, Harriet followed God.
I've got a God in me. My God was.
And so whatever I tapped into to
I had
say
a little
that,
Harriet.
it was no accident.
I had a little Harriet in my life.
Yeah,
so.
It was no accident. It was real. And I'm excited because you did, but also because here we are, 4 women at this particular time in history discussing a woman of great.
You can't call my baby a woman.
Well, you know what? She's
Not
a
yet.
female, and she is going to be
She
an
speaks
awesome
up like an
lady,
adult.
and just like her mom. She sure
She's
does.
not an adult, but
That's
she
right.
is a woman.
She is a woman, and
female.
she's growing to be
female.
just like her mama, with every inch of her. But even more than that, her own little special personality and fearlessness is already shining.
Oh,
Yes?
You know, she's fearless
Because of
and
her
comfortable.
surroundings. It's in your DNA, you know.
Are you trying to get credit for that?
No, that's just maybe half credit. Quarter credit?
Probably quarter, yeah.
But that,
Jasmine? Yeah.
that's awesome.
How would you respond to that? Right? Any further thoughts? No? How does all this impress you coming down today? Is it fun?
I'll say about 95%.
Oh, good. Oh, we get a 95. We
That's
got
a 95. What's that
Yeah,
5%
that's
holdout
fantastic.
for?
We're doing an Our Children after this, and we're going to have some 9-year-old rappers. So that's what
She
we're
wants to
here
be part
too.
of that. She's like, can I be on that?
Huh?
Absolutely.
You're the
Yeah,
right
it's
age.
fun.
That's the
That'll
right
be fun.
on.
That's some fun involved. Well, we have it's a little few more minutes to go. So we've gathered here today, and it's a fun day for me. I see my family here, and my Nan family.
That's right.
And
Well, I'm a
sister,
part of
my
NAN and the
sister over
support.
here.
I'm not a member, but I am a
And
supporter.
we're all talking about a little lady that saved lives. And I think we should all have a little Harriet Tubman inside and learn to love people and take care of your own and make your environment as loving and as educational as you can. Because we're loving people. Humankinds are loving. You know, be human. That's all. You got to be human. Judge people by the content of their character. Everybody should be judged by how you present yourself. And everybody given an even break. Be fair. There's one. If possibly people could be fair to one another. Imagine black people being fair to one another. Or young kids and
They
you
are
stepped
fair.
on.
It's unfair to act like it never happens.
Well, we're talking to an 18-year-old
I know,
that brought
but
up
she
the
has
subject.
one perspective,
Well,
and she's saying
she has
what
an
she said.
18-year-old
What she
perspective.
said was, what I saw in that movie, I can't see that happening in my community. She's about to
Okay.
get to go off to college. She might go off to college and go, oh my goodness, look at this. She has so much more in life to experience. She said, in my experience, I couldn't see that happening. Now she saw the movie,
Okay.
and now that opens up and changes her perspective. But to put the blanket on and said, nobody supports each other, nobody, you know, we're going to hell in a
say
handbasket because of, you've been making some sweeping generalizations
Okay.
in that. There is lots of support in the community, or we wouldn't be where we are.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And even with social media, I was just telling you about the story about the woman that, you know, everybody rallied together and got her out of jail. She got out of jail after 17 appeals denied, or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Okay.
People do rally together. The human spirit is strong, and people do rally together. The Me Too movement, there's many movements where people are rallying together in light, and despite the separation that we're all on separate sides right now. There's a lot of unity in the human
Absolutely.
spirit.
We
And it's based on humans,
The
not
reason why I
necessarily.
said that is that we have a place to come to experience what, like Nan's Youth Huddle. Tell us about the Nan Youth Huddle, where you can get your ideas over and we can talk about things like this.
Yeah, so NAN Youth Huddle, it takes place every Monday, and it's basically it's for the teens to come. They come with topics that have happened on like social media or that they heard in an article or that was presented in school, and they give their opinions, and you come up and you talk about how you feel, what can you do to change this, or your thoughts about it. So it's really good, and they should have more programs like that for the youth.
It's
to be
group
able to-
therapy, that's what that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
It's group therapy.
exactly.
It's the psychology, understanding the human mind.
And they're gonna have lots
So
of them in
often we get
colleges, too. A lot
people
of them exist.
that you feel that don't have the same togetherness. They come to Nan and they get a different view after that.
They do.
So there's a place for these people to go. That's what I'm saying. I generalize because this, I mean, I think of the youth as not having the gumption or I don't know, not the will, because of the schooling, because the schools aren't as good as they used to
Oh,
be.
yeah,
All right?
you got that point right.
And I think that's another educational genocide, you know, by the powers to be, to keep us the foot on our neck, that we fight amongst each other. All right? Not that it's generally, I think we as a people, I think humans as a people, put it that way, are gentle, loving, warm, and have a God spirit. But, you know, under stress and strain, we strive to hurt one another, to get something, or we get jealous of somebody, or all sorts of ins and outs, because of the pressures of the moment, the pressures of the environment.
Yes, and I just
Right?
want to agree with her last statement. Like I said, I'm from Harlem, so I can't testify to anything, how anybody else is feeling, whether they're coming from the Bronx or Staten Island, Brooklyn. We all live in different demographics, and there's stuff going on differently. So
There's always hope. You just have to take it, put it in your mind to seek it out. So, oh, I got 15 minutes. Power to the people. The God in me loves the God in you, and stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist experience. The reason why I'm off, because usually I have the time in front of me, and we have a different camera today. Power to the people. God bless. Come back. Wow.